In 1910, 6 wealthy men came up with a plan to have a secret meeting to create a central bank that we now call the Federal Reserve. Those wealthy men included Nelson Aldrich, Abram Andrew, Henry Davidson, Benjamin Strong, Frank Vanderlip, and Paul Warburg. Apparently, they were associated with big names like J.P. Morgan, William Rockefeller, and William Vanderbilt. There are rumors that 3 powerful men, John Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus, were all against the creation of the Federal Reserve. In 1912, the 3 of them took a trip on the Titanic, but unfortunately, they went down with the ship. Now here's the crazy part. The Titanic was owned by a company called the International Mercantile Marine Company, and one of the founders was surprisingly J.P. Morgan. Now I cannot confirm whether or not John, Benjamin, and Isidore were against the creation of the Federal Reserve, but the fact that they all died on what people called the unsinkable ship and the Federal Reserve was created the year after they died is a little suspicious. Now, the idea of creating a central bank was not new. The United States has had 3 central banking systems in its history. In 1791, Alexander Hamilton was a key advocate in creating the first central bank of the United States. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that only lasted from 1791 to 1811. The second central bank of the United States was signed into law by the 4th US President, James Madison, in 1816. That ended with President Andrew Jackson in 1836. Andrew Jackson was known to be strongly against central banks. He had a few famous quotes such as, "The bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it. When you get in debt, you become a slave." Fun fact, during his presidency, he paid off the entire national debt in 1835, which made the US government debt-free for the first and only time in history. Now we are over $36 trillion in debt. Another president who was very much against central banks was Thomas Jefferson. One of his famous quotes was, "If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people, to whom it properly belongs." Then from 1837 to 1913, America had no central banks. The banking system was not doing that great, and it suffered a lot of bank runs because of lending and fractional reserve banking. But in 1910, those men linked to J.P. Morgan met secretly on Jekyll Island to create a new money system to control America's cash for the 3rd time. This monetary system was kept secret for about 3 years, and then on December 23rd, 1913, 2 days before Christmas, which is convenient because there were fewer congressmen to look over it right before the holidays, the creature called the Federal Reserve was created. President Woodrow Wilson signed the act into law in 1913, but it wasn't until 1919 that he realized that he had made a huge mistake. "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. We are no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and the duress of a small group of dominant men." As of right now, the Federal Reserve System is composed of several entities, including 7 members of the Board of Governors, 12 regional Federal Reserve banks, and the Federal Open Market Committee. Now, I don't want to waste your time and talk about how they get elected and how they manage their balance sheet, but let's talk about the biggest problem with the Federal Reserve. Now, the biggest problem with the Federal Reserve is that because the currency is not backed by anything, they have the ability to print an unlimited amount of it.
Fair to say you simply flooded the system with money?
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
More money sounds pretty cool, right? But here's the thing. If I'm working hard and you're paying me in a piece of paper that you can just print, when I get my paycheck, if I keep that piece of paper, my money will start to lose its value the longer I hold on to it, like it has been for the past centuries, because you keep printing more and more and more and more of it. The more of it that you can make out of nothing, the less valuable it becomes. So in order for me to preserve the value of my money, you give me no choice but to save it into something that has a limited supply that no one can control. So the Federal Reserve is not federal. It has no reserve and it is not a bank. But somehow they have so much power that not even the president can touch them.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
Do you believe the president has the power to fire or demote you, and has the Fed determined the legality of a president demoting at will any of the other governors with leadership positions?
Not permitted under the law.
The reason your grocery bills, rent, and healthcare costs keep rising isn't just because of corporate greed. It's directly linked to how our money system operates. And no, a 2% inflation is not normal. With a 2% inflation rate, you will lose about 64% of your money's purchasing power in 50 years. That's why the author Edward Griffin called the Fed a creature, because it eats away at the purchasing power of your money every year when you save it. And that creature also affects different parts of our life that we're not aware of, such as our health, our social life, and the way we raise our children. So the next time you're in a grocery store and you ask yourself, why is everything so expensive? It's because of the creature from Jekyll Island. Thankfully, in 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto released an electronic peer-to-peer cash system that can also preserve the value of your money in the long run. It offers you a way out. It's limited to 21 million coins, each coin containing 100 million Satoshis, and nearly impossible for anyone to inflate. It's only 16 years old, worth over $1.5 trillion, so it might make sense just to get some in case it catches on.